Welcome to Search Talk Live with search engine optimization and marketing experts Robert O'Haver and Matt Weber. Powered by the Robert Palmer family of companies.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Search Talk Live. I'm your host, Robert O'Haver. Along with me is Matt Weber. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How about yourself? You're looking good?
Thank you. No, I'm just kidding. I am doing great. Just excited to be doing this show on a regular basis now. We've got a huge lineup for the next couple of months. Just to give you guys a bit of a view, we've got a great guest today, but we've also got Joost de Valk, which is the creator of the plugin, if you haven't heard of it, Joost. Yeah. You'd have to be living under a rock.
Yeah, but that's my goal in life, by the way, is to have a product named after me.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not spelled the same, though.
Yeah.
Then we have Rand Fishkin the following week, and then we're going to jump back into some schema stuff with Martha Van Berkel. I keep messing her name up.
Now, when we talk to Rand, are we going to do the virtual whiteboard thing? Are you and I going to pantomime what he's saying like we're near a whiteboard?
Yeah. But I want to thank everybody for listening. We've had an explosive, a huge growth since we've been back. We thought that when we came back, we were going to be kind of low on listeners, but I tell you, we've got a lot. And I want to thank everybody for taking the time to downloading the show, listening to the show, and I hope you're getting some really good insights and help to help you be successful online.
Yeah, we got a couple notes that people listen to us while they exercise.
Yeah.
So keep it up. You're looking good.
And I guess the word is getting out because you said when you went and did your training session, right?
In Boulder, Colorado. Yeah, we had 2 people in Boulder, Colorado say, hey, listen to the show. I just got back from Indianapolis, where I talked to about 100 people. No Search Talk Live listeners in Indianapolis, though.
Okay. You did mention the show, right?
I did mention the show, but if you want me back, Indianapolis, you're going to have to step it up here.
Yeah. And we also get contacted from people in Germany and Sweden and all over the world. England. It's just amazing. I can't believe it. But I want to thank everybody for listening to the show. Tell your friends in the industry about our show. We want more listeners, more the better, because we're trying to spread a good word to everyone. There's so much bad information out there on the web for pretty much anything in the industry, you name it. And we want to give you that good piece of information that's going to help you succeed.
Agreed. No spam here.
Yeah. So today is a special guest. Not only is he special because he's a sponsor. No, I'm just kidding.
But he's a talented dude.
But our guest today is with Directive. His name is Garrett Marguth. He is going to be talking about discovery. And we're not talking about discovery as far as keywords and links and all that stuff or traffic. He's going to explain to you.
Yeah, and I think this is a great show because we're going to get back to basics here.
Yeah.
And I think as Garrett talks about that, we've kind of gotten tangential when it comes to SEO, right? We get really immersed in the finer points of it, and we lose.
We do, yeah.
Can't see the forest of the trees when it comes to SEO at some point. Yeah. And what Garrett's going to do in the next few minutes is really bring it back to money in your pocket, and how does all this distill down to what really matters?
Right. And Garrett, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be here. I think I've gotten to be on here a couple times before, so excited to be back.
Yeah,
excited to have you guys doing this again.
Alumni.
Yeah, man. No, it's really special, and I think what you do for the community of search marketers is amazing, and I'm just glad to be a part of it.
Thank you. Garrett, I've known you now for a few years, and I can tell that your company has really exploded in the last few years. You've done really well, and I'd like you to tell everybody about your company and kind of give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, so I run an agency called Directive. We work mostly with B2B and enterprise organizations doing SEO, PPC, and content, essentially full service search marketing. One of the coolest parts, one of the most exciting parts is just getting to see how the team here at Directive is developing and the talent and just the clients we're getting the opportunity to work with. So it's been a blast. My background, I started selling $5 gigs on Fiverr. And then I started Directive with $20. And so it was definitely, it's been blood, sweat, and tears, is, trying to get better every day and asking myself, is there something I can learn today? Is there something I can engage with today? And if I can learn something and engage with something, can I create more value for myself and for our customers and for our team? And so that kind of motto of learn, engage, create, I think has been able to power us forward, and it's been really exciting.
Nice. You know, I can tell how well successful you are is because you have an assistant now. I can't email you directly. I have to go through the assistant.
No assistant. That's just one of my lovely marketing people. She does PR, and she's done a phenomenal job. Shout out to Ashton. She's listening. So, she's done amazing work getting us these awesome opportunities, to get in front of our audience.
Yeah, and she's persistent too, because we went on hiatus for a while, and she just kept emailing.
Perfect.
I'm like, okay, so yeah, she's on it, man.
So she did a good job of getting Garrett discovered by us,
Yep.
and that's what we want to talk about now, is how do companies and brands get discovered, and why should they focus on being discovered when it comes to SEO?
Yeah, great segue.
Yeah, how about it, Garrett? Let's get us started about this concept of discoverability.
Yeah, so thank you guys. You guys just teed it up for me. That was lovely. So discoverability is, to me, based on, I think, the idea of making sure your brand can be found. But I think before we dive fully into the topic of discoverability, I have two principles that I believe search marketing entirely relies on. Number one, your brand is more important than your website. Very important. Okay, so number one, your brand is more important than your website. And then number two, Google ranks pages, not websites. Okay. So with those two principles in mind, brand, not website, pages, not website, the idea of discoverability becomes this kind of foundation for everything that we do as search marketers. Inherently, to me, we start to talk and laugh, right, about, have you ever done log file analysis, right? Have you ever tried this tool called Deep Crawl? What does your Screaming Frog report say? Oh, yeah, what about this? What about that? How's your pagination? Did you set this up? And those are all great questions. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are all a critical part of SEO. But what we don't ask ourselves a lot is, what does your brand want to be known for? Someone will say, hey, look, we want to be known as the best CRM software.
But what about that pagination? No.
Yeah, and I said, no, that's amazing. That's great. Let me go into Google real quick and search for best CRM software, and let's see what happens, right? So what do we see when we do that? We're going to see 4 paid results above the fold. Then what we're going to see is a completely different landscape at the bottom of the funnel that most SEOs still haven't figured out what to do about, okay? So that's called third-party review sites. That's Capterra, that's software advice, that's technology advice, that's PC Mac, that's GetApp, that's every site that's essentially aggregating reviews and information at the bottom of the funnel. Okay, these sites are paid lists that are actually technically should be probably part of your PPC team. Now, unfortunately, for a lot of people in-house, when we work with them, especially in the SaaS community, we ask, so who manages these listings? And they're like, well, I think Jerry in accounting, and he kind of works with design. And I'm like, you guys do know, though, right, that it's showing up, right? It has a 30% click-through rate in the number one spot for the term that you told me is most important for your brand. Don't you think it's important that people can discover you there?
But I'm crushing it for not provided.
And my organic traffic, right, every month is going up. And you're like, okay, that's awesome. And then someone in the SEO team suggests, let's do a scholarship campaign. And it's like, okay, so you're trying to tell me that it's more important to build links from .edu than show up when people are searching for the most expensive terms in Google Ads for your brand, right? And so the key here is not about all the other nuances of SEO, but instead stepping back and say, what do you sell? And then when people look for what you sell, does your brand show up? And the reason it's so important to ask if your brand shows up is because your website inherently won't at the bottom of the funnel for some of these terms. When you take software-related terms and you layer it with best, top, or reviews, these are your bottom of funnel queries. They have the highest cost per click in Google Ads. They have the highest intent and likelihood to buy. Your actual organic SEO is not the best answer to that question, and you will not rank for those terms. And so if you're thinking that your solution to generate more opportunities and deals and revenue for your business is inherently organic traffic, you are going to miss the ship when it comes to the areas where the timings are best and you can generate essentially the most immediate return for your money. And that's through third-party sites, Google Ads, and positioning of your brand when it matters. That doesn't mean Google's not important, like in the sense of organic, but it means that we need to understand, could we even rank for something, and does our brand show up when it matters the most? And that should be priority number one for a search marketer.
Yeah, I'm getting two really great thoughts out of your description here. One is that search engine results page really needs to look like a retail shelf for the business. So a retailer like Coke, they look at that shelf at Publix or the retailer and they say, I got to get as much of that space as possible in whatever form I can so that I can get that sale. And that's what a search engine results page is for a business. We got to get as much penetration onto that page for those bottom funnel queries as we can. Do you agree?
Oh, 1,000%. And the problem is, though, is we go back to our traditional ways. So we say, let's show up on Google Ads, right? Let's be number one there. Well, at Directive, what we found is whether you're number one or number four, your click-through rate doesn't vary that much, but your cost per click drastically does, which then thus erodes your margin, right? One of the number one mistakes we see is people overestimate the power of showing up once. In other words, they don't realize that the average first or even fourth result for that bottom of funnel query is going to have a click-through rate hovering between 2 and 5 at the very highest, right? But that number one paid list at the number one spot in organic is going to have a 27 to 30% click-through rate. AKA, you can 10x your volume by simply pivoting spend away from just Google Ads into third-party sites and then drastically improve your ability to be discovered.
Okay, now how do you counter the argument that people say in those directories that you're speaking of, if I drive the user there, I'm going to be exposed along with all my competitors, where if I can attract their attention on my Google ad, it's just me?
Yeah, I would say if your product isn't ready to compete, then you're not ready to advertise.
You got to be ready to play at the highest level.
What's the, like, if you let's slow down our money, right, for a second. If we're spending all this money to just drive people to a product or a service that's really not worth the buck, then inherently your marketing will always fail, because pretty soon you get a bad reputation, right? And then you can't counteract a bad reputation. It's just, that the whole point here is, you have to be able to market world-class services and products. And if it's not world-class yet, you need to really invest your money there while kind of surviving and scraping by till you're ready for growth.
It's a great conversation, Robert, because, a lot of people say steer away from those directories, and you and I do a lot of work in home services.
Sure. And
where the directories dominate positions 1, 2, and 3 in home services. And even in legal, they dominate 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
And a lot of people say, okay, steer away from that, do some other tests. But so what Garrett's saying is you got to win those areas as well. You got to win the directories.
Well, I'm saying you need to show up. You don't have to inherently win. So this is the fun part. So what we've done at Directive is we've developed essentially an API that goes into a SQL database that allows us to take all of our clients' advertising and directly integrate it into their CRM. And then we can see not what deals have the best cost per acquisition, right? One of the most dangerous things right now for B2B and enterprise companies out there, and I think in search marketing in general, is optimizing towards a cost per acquisition. Because what you do on accident and with the best intentions in search marketing, when you start optimizing towards a CPA, is you inherently discredit terms that are going to have the most opportunity to drive revenue because they have a high CPA. But you don't know that if you don't have CRM or e-commerce integration. So what you end up doing is you start turning off your bottom of funnel terms, right, that have higher cost per clicks, that are more expensive, because you can't attribute essentially the value of that conversion to any more value than your cheaper conversions. And so you inherently have diminishing marginal returns on your advertising anytime you instinctively optimize towards a CPA for high average order value industries. And so this is one of the theories here, is just understanding what the actual cost per opportunity is or cost per deal is, allows you to properly allocate spend. CPA doesn't allow you to do that on high average order value contracts or really in any type of pricing model, because you end up discounting essentially value and you put a lot of weight on cost. And the margin usually is the same, right? The cost to deliver to an SEO, right, to a $4,000 customer, to a $10,000 customer is marginal, right? Because it takes the same amount of time to do great work. The difference is essentially their ability to monetize it. And so when you're doing essentially this CPA-based advertising, you're inherently saying we don't want those 10Ks because we don't want to show up for terms that other competitors know are valuable because they do have CRM integration. And so we don't want to fight over those better customers, and you're actually hurting yourself. It's a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah, I hope everybody's following the math because it's really insightful.
It is. Yeah. I mean, what would you say to someone that, me personally, even if they're ranking for a specific term that brings them a good ROI, I always say back it up with paid. Not to the extent to where it's, at the level they were before they were ranking there, but always be some.
Oh, I do not believe in SERP cannibalization. I believe in SERP market share.
Yeah.
So I believe that every time you show up, you're adding a likelihood of showing up when the ideal persona is shopping. Because if you do have the CRM integration, right, and you know that every time someone searches ERP software, you have a likelihood of X of generating Y revenue.
Right.
Why not show up more? Instead of search marketers, we like to show up in more places instead of more often in the right places. And that's the idea of discoverability, is changing, essentially looking at a SERP as an entire potential landscape, not just isolated parts for PPC and SEO, but instead, how do you get that journalist to mention you in that article? Right. How do you get that review site? How much does it cost to show up? How much is the cost per click on Google Ads? Can you write a type of top of funnel query-based piece of content on your blog that'll pull maybe somewhere in the 6 through 10 spot? How do you essentially take market share, or what I call share of SERP, for the keywords that are most likely to turn into opportunities, deals, and revenue for your business?
Dominate the shelf space, in essence.
Yep.
Now, what about the folks listening that don't have access today to a CRM that helps them connect the dots between the leads and the sales? Can you offer any guidance on maybe some simpler tools that they can use to get to this analysis of what drives revenue rather than what drives lead acquisition?
Yeah, so one of the ways you can do it is you can essentially use hidden fields to map in, like using what's called Google's Click ID. And so you could then do an export from like an unbalanced CSV or an Instapage CSV file. And then you could map that to your CRM and manually attribute it using Google Click ID. If I didn't have CRM data or a way to attribute essentially conversions to opportunities, deals, and revenue, I would stop all the money I'm investing in my ads and I would put it into hiring a freelance developer or whatever that is to essentially build me an API to connect the two. And it's not horribly expensive. It doesn't take a horribly long time. But I would make sure that I had the ability to understand what was working or what was not from a revenue standpoint, not a cost per acquisition standpoint.
And also make sure that, this goes without saying, but like with your paid ads, make sure you're using UTM codes for those. You're like we were talking about a couple weeks ago with Google My Business. Make sure you have UTMs for that. So you can track, everything as a goal.
Yeah. I ran across a neat company a couple of weeks ago that they're using Google Forms in their WordPress site.
Yeah.
And the reason they're using Google Forms is because it automatically exports into a Google Sheet.
Yeah.
And so then all that data is trapped right there, and then they're doing their conversion to revenue in that Google Sheet.
Nice.
Yep. And you could even just use an API using Google Click ID, and you can even build out attribution modeling. So at Directive, right, we've built our own proprietary model that'll do first, last touch. Think of it as a visible that we can offer to any of our clients in-house so they can do full attribution on everything that comes to their website and then map it into their CRM.
Nice.
Let's talk about how to discover some of those bottom of funnel words. How can we decode the buyer journey from the search terms that they use? And I should say the buyer journey has gotten elongated. I think we all have this mythical perception that somebody clicks on an ad, goes to the site, does the thing that you want them to do, but it's a lot more convoluted than that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the question is do they trust you? And that's why it's all about your brand, right? And then it's all about your pages. So the first thing you have to answer is, okay, what type of content is ranking for this term that I know is valuable in that buying journey? Okay, it's listicles. Am I willing to mention my competitors on my own website? If not, you're probably not going to rank for that term. Okay, is it information-based? Do I have a what is-based type of content around this? Is it versus-based? Is it review-based? Can I put out a data set around this? And so asking yourself, what's the best answer? What type of categorical content is the best type of content for this term. And then you need to build that world-class page to satisfy that query. And then once you have that world-class page, we need to go out and earn links to that world-class page. How do you do that? You can do that through podcasting. You can do that through guest posting. You can do that through PR and journalism outreach. You can do that through all these other ways, but you have to ask yourself, okay, what do I need to create there to essentially satisfy the buying intent? And so because we focus so much on the journey, we never focus on the intent. And so we plug the wrong crap at the wrong time and wonder why it doesn't work. Well, it has 2,000 words. Well, it has this many links. Yeah. Well, I internally linked it from my core pages and it's linked to from my homepage. I have pagination, right? I followed all these best practices, but they don't ask themselves, was this even the right type of content for that intent of that query, right, of that searcher? And when we get really into the basics, that's what unlocks success. You know, the smartest search marketers in the world understand essentially what to do and when to do it, and equally what not to do. And when they can simply prioritize the right methods, it works. Like we rank #1 for SEO agency. Okay. Like that is a cool thing for our brand. It's great for our business. And how did we do it, right? We just made a really good page and we built a lot of links going to the page. It's not, I don't have any other secrets. There's no magic trick. It's you build a great page that answers the intent. You get your targeting right. You get your information right. You get your design right. You get your speed right. You get all these internal linking right. And then you have to essentially build authority to the page. And if you focus on the pages that you want to rank for the keywords that are going to drive you opportunities, deals, and revenue, now you have a winning search strategy, whether that's a landing page, so it's still valuable, right? So on your paid side, you have a world-class landing page that speaks to the intent, or on the organic side, do you have a world-class landing page that speaks to the intent? And then how do you essentially identify which pages you don't have for where you need to be discovered so you can make money? And once you start to think like that, it makes SEO so basic and so successful for your brand.
Well, there's a small part that you've really articulated well that got hidden in that answer, and that is you got to write these pages to be helpful, to be worthwhile, to answer the question. That's a big jump for a lot of businesses today, because what do they still want to do? They want to do the chest pounding, here's why we're great, we've got 30 years experience, blah, blah, blah.
Nobody wants to hear that.
Nobody wants to hear that, right. Yeah. Have you ever met anybody that said, man, I just bought this product because the company had a great mission statement? Yeah, it never happens, right?
Yeah.
So getting businesses to focus on helping them and answering the questions is a big part of this.
Yeah, and I think it just goes back to the intent, right? Because all these guys read the latest article, and these gals read the latest article that says, well, you need at least 1,000 words. Well, you need this many internal links. But nobody writes an article saying, is the type of content the best answer for that question? Is this the time to write a listicle, or is this the time to write a what piece, or is this the time to do a comparison piece, or is this time for a data set? And knowing what to write when is actually the most important part.
You know, but the biggest shortfall I see with that type of stuff, I mean, with those things, are not knowing how to read the data. You know, not looking at bounce rates and not looking at just the basics. I mean, that's what we're talking about here.
To see if the page is really answering the user's objective.
Right.
Yeah. You know, Garrett, you authored an article a while back, and I don't want to put you on the spot here, but it's actually an article that I've bookmarked a couple times, and it's like 10 best tools for businesses to help, I think it's decode their SEO journey, or 10 best tools. Do you remember that article? I have it up here because I keep it.
I wonder. I mean, I wrote so many articles the first 3 years. All I did was publish. I was writing daily.
Well, one of those tools you mentioned was one of our favorites, answerthepublic.com.
Oh, yeah.
Which kind of turns SEO research from that cold empirical, what's the phrase, to what are the questions that people are asking.
Yep. I mean, I love that tool. Now, the way to use that tool, though, I think is really important. So I used it for initial topical modeling and kind of journey mapping. But then what you can do in the top right corner of that tool, you can hit export to CSV. Then I export it, and then I import it into something like a Moz Keyword Planner or Ahrefs or SEMrush, whatever that is that you use. And then I prioritize my favorite buying journey topics based on keyword difficulty, volume, and potential/opportunity. And so then what it does is it gives you Answer the Public, which is this kind of feel-good visualization that lets you understand things, and then prioritize based on opportunity by importing that as a CSV into a keyword tool. And then that can create actually a keyword strategy for you, which is really special.
Wow.
Yeah, it comes right to the heart of it. What is the user struggling with, and how can you help them?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then what do you write first based on your opportunity, right? Because the prioritization of everything is really what separates good from great when it comes to search marketing. Is what is it that you do with the limited amount of time you have? And if you're doing the wrong things, you're going to get marginal impact. When you're doing the right things, you're going to get maximum impact. And so recognizing what not to do and being really good at prioritization and time management is the ultimate skill set for a search marketer.
Yeah, and on the agency side, you no doubt have a client that has come to you and said, well, we want to rank for A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, and J.
Yep.
And then you're the one that has to say, lovely thought, but let's prioritize that because you can't do all that.
Well, yeah, and I think one of the things I'm learning too, and this is, I think, one of the biggest kind of growth areas that Directive is going through, is clients come to us and they say, I've got $20,000 to spend on Google Ads, and I need to generate 150 MQLs. Okay. And then what do agencies say? They go, hell yeah, I'm going to try this. I'm going to work my butt off and we're going to go do it. Like everybody does this. Nobody ever checks the client, right? Nobody ever says, okay, here's what you do. So I built a model, and I love models. Side disclaimer, I build models for everything here. And it just helps me not be stupid because I'm incredibly stupid, but models are incredibly smart. And so it allows essentially me to take my hypotheses and my assumptions and all these things I think I know, put it in a model, and I'm like, oops, wrong. And so what the model does inherently is it takes their goals, and then you essentially run a 1-week test to get at least a benchmark CPA, a benchmark of just, okay, here's how much clicks are costing. Okay, if we could get a conversion rate anywhere between 2 and 10%, what does that look like? And then you can quickly go back to the client and say, with your $20,000 budget, the actual market CPA is $500. To hit your goal of 150, I would need a CPA up to say $200. I'm not doing the math right now. So we will not be able to hit that goal. However, our model has calculated exactly what you need to spend or how you could pivot top of funnel to use something like lead gen forms in LinkedIn to essentially hit your total goal. And then it allows us to create a North Star metric, which we will make as opportunities, deals, or revenue for a client. And then we can essentially back our way into exactly how we will hit your deal goal, no matter what, with data from your exact buying journey. And then we can essentially adjust your spend, adjust your goals, and then be successful. Because if you don't do that, no matter how good Directive is, it cannot achieve a magical CPA. Right. And so what happens? We fail the client because we never educated the client. The client then goes, Directive sucks. They go to another agency. Another agency doesn't correct the client. They go, X agency sucks. And they just repeatedly fail because no one essentially had the gall to tell them, you know what, those goals aren't realistic. And we've had actually an opportunity to calculate them. Is it okay if we were to reset your goals a little bit and we could go back to management with you, maybe fly into your office and explain exactly what your goals should be so we can hit those goals? And now all of a sudden, you're starting to build a relationship with an account. Yeah. And that's, you know what I mean?
Garrett, that is so well said because you see time and time again that exact scenario. I mean, you're setting expectations in the beginning and making sure that the customer or the client is educated it goes a million miles.
Well, and the problem is the agencies don't mean poorly. I didn't mean bad when I would just say, yeah. Right, client comes to me, hey, I want to do this. I'm like, you know what? That's a hard goal, but we're going to go for it. We're going to try our best for you, and we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and I think we can do it. But I didn't actually build a model that I would say, you know what? That's not the right goal, and we could never actually hit it. Like, do you think we could get to a 50% conversion rate from Google Ads on that term? No. Okay, what's the accurate one based on our historical data set from our 50 B2B SaaS companies? Oh, okay, here's what we could project this conversion rate to be. Okay, here's what we can project the cost per click to be. Okay, we're a little off on our goals. Before we go too deep in this, let's reset our goal setting so we can all see success together, so you can report to upper management properly, so we can report into you appropriately, and we can see actual success for your business. Like, that's the right conversation, but nobody's having it. I haven't met anybody having it in our industry, and it's it stinks because we're accidentally portraying the wrong image with the best intentions.
Absolutely. Garrett, we need to take a break real quick, but when we get back, guys, we're talking to Garrett Marguth of Directive. His website is directiveconsulting.com. When we come back, we're going to do who's influencing the influencer. those are people that you follow, Garrett, to get your insider information. So we'll do that right when we get back.
Today's episode of Search Talk Live is sponsored by
Directive is an industry-leading search marketing agency fully focused on helping B2B marketing teams increase their results. If you're looking to increase your marketing qualified leads and decrease your cost per acquisition for search engines, I'd highly recommend you take a look at their site. We've actually had their CEO, Garrett Marguth, on the show, and I can honestly say these guys are doing some great stuff. I hear that they even have their own analytics system that lets you correlate your SEO, PPC, or content efforts directly to revenue. If you're a B2B company and thinking about switching agencies, or if you're in-house and need help, I'd give Directive a look. Visit directiveconsulting.com or call 949-214-4024. Again, that's 949-214-4024. Again, that's Directive at directiveconsulting.com.
One of the major factors in ranking a website is quality backlinks to your site. There's much debate on what is the proper way to build links. Do it the wrong way and you could find yourself in a penalty. Follow best practices and your site could be rewarded by ranking higher in the search engines. As an SEO, it's very time consuming, along with the many other ranking factors you have to address on a website. You could spend days and months trying to get one quality backlink to your site. That is why I want to tell you about the No BS Marketplace. At No BS, you can connect with over 10,000 digital publishers. By following link building best practices, you can take full control of your link building campaigns and make it more cost effective for your clients. At No BS, they allow you to review publishers, approve content, and customize it to a whole new level, giving you the quality content that is so important. With pricing starting at just $100 per link, why not try a different way to build links? As a Search Talk Live listener, No BS is offering you 20% off your first order. Just use promo code Search Talk Live to get started today. Go to nobs.link. That is nobs.link.
Get your questions in on Twitter. Type hashtag Search Talk Live and your question. Now back to the show.
All right, we're back. Now, just like you heard on the commercial, you can go to Twitter and type in hashtag Search Talk Live. Ask Garrett some questions or us, or we can, if we don't get to it today, we'll definitely get to it on the next show. But Garrett, it's that time. We are going to do Who Influences the Influencer. So you're on Twitter. Who do you follow? Who influences you in the industry that you'd like to share?
And get your pen and paper ready.
Yes.
I think when it comes to just sharing high quality content on a consistent basis, Cyrus Shepard's the best. I think, anybody who's active in the SEO community is probably aware of that. So I'd always recommend following Cyrus. Great guy. Copywriting wise, Joel Glecky's awesome. Had him on our podcast called Yours in Marketing, and he's an awesome interview. Awesome guy, very, very sharp, talking about copywriting and CRO. But then honestly, I love to follow people who aren't like, I have so many people in search I follow. I think I kind of follow everybody that it all kind of starts to sound like one collective noise. Like you could follow only Cyrus and you wouldn't miss anything in SEO. I think what people don't do is they start to get obsessed with SEO as a community and they start to forget that it's a bubble. And we start to inherently write content for other SEOs, even though we're an agency selling to other companies. And so everything we do starts to be about educating and impressing our friends instead of educating our customers. And we wonder why content marketing isn't generating revenue, because we're just doing it as kind of a measuring contest instead of an educational experience for our ideal customer persona, right? And so I try to avoid that, and I fell into that trap myself. And so I love to follow people like Ray Dalio. I don't know if I said his last name right. Jim Collins. I'm actually more about reading books. I try to read a book every week. That's what helps me because I'm not inherently like smart. I've only been doing this for like 5 years. And so a lot of other people who have been exponentially more successful, I've found that the number one trick for me to keep growing and why we've been able to grow so much is every time I don't know what to do, I don't just keep doing what I'm doing. Yeah. I stop, I buy a book, and I just read it. And by the time I'm done with the book, I've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 new ideas that I can execute on. So, I think Good to Great is one of my favorite books. Predictable Revenue, one of my favorite books. The Flywheel Effect, which is an excerpt from Good to Great, is an amazing book. Principles is an awesome book. Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker. I read, awesome book I just read. Start with Why, another amazing book.
Is there any good podcasts?
Search Talk Live, favorite podcast.
Queued that one up.
No, I listen to like sports podcasts and stuff like that. I'm kind of a sucker for sports, and so I end up kind of following that along. But no, honestly, I think there's amazing people on Twitter, but don't follow all of them and don't get sucked into the SEO community unless you're trying to sell into SEOs. Really, stretch yourself, and I think read more in management, read more in executive stuff, read more in finance. Because that's what's going to really differentiate you as a search marketer, is your ability to communicate and your ability to understand how markets work and how businesses work. Because you'll know what to sell or what you need to deliver so your clients can sell. And I think, the less you worry about your link building and the more you worry about how to do great PR for them, for example, you're going to do better. The less you worry about crawl rate and the more you worry about discoverability, the better you're going to do. And that's not, we work on huge websites. So it's not me saying that those things aren't valuable. It's just inherently not the core purpose of why someone hires you to do search marketing, right? Yeah. They need their brand to show up at the right time to the right person. Right. And mastering that is really powerful.
Absolutely. What would you say to those people that, the SEOs that are just kind of distraught because, 5 years ago we weren't competing against, Google My Business or, it's not, you're trying to rank number 1 now. You're trying to rank number 4.
Because you're not going to get number 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Innovate or die. Like, what are you going to do, right? Write a long blog post. Google's going to read it and be like, dang, you're right. Let me roll that algorithm back. The times are changing, and that's the joy. I think the reason why so many people got into SEO is because it was such a constantly changing environment, yet it's one of the things we love to complain about. Yeah. And so let's harness the reason why we got obsessed with search engines in the first place, right? There was this opportunity to take a very complex system or a complex model and figure out how to, I won't want to say manipulate it, but influence it in a way that leveraged your client or, improved your own business. Yeah. And that is still totally doable, except the tools you have kind of changed. Some of the things they used to do don't work as well. And some of the new things you're doing have worked better than they ever did before. And the key is, right, making sure you have a model, AKA proper attribution, that goes all the way through the life cycle of a client in your business to ask yourselves which tactics and techniques are most successful for me. And as long as you can create a model to test what you're doing, you can essentially first fire bullets and then fire cannonballs and drastically grow your organization or your clients. And so really understanding how to do that and think more structured is really freeing and creative because it gives us new things to experiment with and try. And we just have to repurpose how we sell SEO. We have to sell SEO as an ability to generate opportunities, deals, and revenue from a search engine for a client. And if you can do that, it doesn't matter how you do it. The goal is still the same. And so, getting away from all the kind of old school tactics and methods and really innovating into, okay, if it's about brand and if it's about pages, how do I do an exceptional job positioning my clients' brands? And how do I do an exceptional job creating the right pages and building those pages authorities at the right time? And if you do that, you're going to be hyper successful.
Which is really changing for a business owner here, changing their focus. If you accept the fact that the body goes where the mind leads, and a lot of these businesses get that monthly report and it says clicks, impressions, bounce rate, these vanity metrics that at the end of the day aren't driving revenue. Businesses have got to adopt new data to watch in order to point their behavior in a different direction.
Yeah, we just need working CRMs. We need essentially to know where our contacts, our leads, and our opportunities came from. And if you don't know that, you don't know anything. And once you know that, you become incredibly powerful and influential with your marketing spend and with, even more important, your time. Now, I think this isn't just a small business thing, okay? So we've had the blessing of working with one of the largest insurance providers in the entire world for the last almost 3 years now. And one of the things that even they struggle with is And it's not their fault internally. It's because management has to look at things like organic traffic to the website. And that's the KPI they've been given, they've always used. Mm-hmm. Does this make sense? But then, right, they come to us and they say, we're seeing these things go up, yet simultaneously we're losing traffic every month no matter what we do. They're like, because Google My Business is showing up. Third-party aggregators like Yelp and other places are showing up, and we can't compete. And so then my question goes to them, awesome. The first one of you, right, of the large insurance players who accepts that reality and says, we're going to track things differently. We're going to track how often we show up in Google My Business. We're going to track how often we show up in Yelp. We're going to do essentially share of SERP tracking, not just organic traffic tracking. Do you see what I'm saying? So if your whole methods of value, and I said essentially saying what is valuable to your business is traffic to your website, then your organic team, your SEO team, will inherently experience diminishing marginal returns, because every day Google does what? They monetize their search engine, trying to decrease essentially the organic traffic they're sending to you. So you are inherently at odds with Google. Instead, if you say we're going to value share of SERP and how often our brand shows up when it matters to us, now you're getting the game and you're playing by the rules in 2019. And that's the different perspective.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about content because, underneath all of this is you got to have great content to be able to do a lot of what we're talking about on the show today. And there's a lot of business owners listening to the show and they're going, lovely thought, but I don't have the resources to create this content that answers the user's query. Can a business owner, can a business safely purchase content, or does content really need to come from the heart of the business? Does it need to be indigenous to the businthe?
What a question. What a
great question. Yeah.
I love it because I had to go through this over the last 6 months. I was looking at acquiring what I would deem as one of the best kind of content creation companies out there. And we were having some great talks, but I had to ask myself, first and foremost, do I think that we could do world-class content and create it on a consistent basis for a variety of industries? And number two, so at first I decided, yes, I could. I think I could. But then the second part was I had to decide if the organizations were willing to pay what it costs to do that. And what I decided there was no. Okay. The truth is, if you want to hire a world-class freelancer to write content, like a real piece of content, you're going to pay high hundreds, low thousands of dollars. I do not know very many organizations that want to pay $750 to $1,200 plus an agency's fee, essentially, to create a world-class content. And if it's not world-class, what's the point of showing up? Because it's not going to inspire someone to take action and turn into an opportunity deal or revenue. And so at Directive, we actually decided that we are not going to offer content creation as a service to any new clients moving forward. We didn't think we could be the best in the world at it. And we didn't think we didn't have the customers inherently that would pay those thousands of dollars for content. And so we couldn't offer the kind of content we wanted to at the price point people were willing to pay. And I think that's the hardest part about content is real content. And by the way, the third part is even when you pay that thousands of dollars and you deliver it to a client, guess what a lot of the times the feedback is? Well, I wouldn't have necessarily said it that way. Yeah. It's not inherently wrong. It's not inherently a bad piece. But that's not really, do you guys really know our product? That's really not our voice. That's not our tone. So we decided we're going to build bigger content briefs. We're going to do product demos. We're going to become the best. And even after all of that, right? Well, right. And what I learned is even when people write for me and when people are my own team members who do an amazing job writing my blog, sometimes I read something, I'm like, I wouldn't have said it that way. And it hurts, right? Content's this emotional thing when it's your brand. You have opinions and they're yours. They're not everyone's. And you want people's thought process and their opinions to be your opinions because it's your brand. And that problem was so large, I didn't think that Directive was even the best agency to solve it. And so we kind of got out of the content creation business and we've done even better, right? We stopped doing things we weren't the best at. And so that's just my take on it. It wasn't a problem I was willing to solve. I do think if clients are willing to pay thousands of dollars per piece of content, just like the best video agencies, right? Like the best video agencies out there have 20K minimums. They're not doing videos, even if it's a 2-minute video, they're not doing it for less than 20 grand because they know how hard it is. Yet the problem is the willingness to pay for a video is exponentially higher than that for written words, because everybody thinks they're a writer and nobody thinks they're a videographer. And because of that, right, it creates this willingness to pay. And that's why we kind of got out of the content creation space. And it's a hard problem.
You know, I experience a little bit of an opposite of that. I experience businesses who see video as a shortcut to content quality creation. They think that they've been told at seminars and workshops, all you need is an iPhone and you need and create that content on YouTube. So, Robert, what's your thought on that? Can video be a shortcut to good content production?
I think in conjoint with content. So the best of both worlds, basically.
You got to have something great to say, whether it doesn't matter what the medium is. But you do see a lot of people that take that philosophy of, hey, you've got a phone in your pocket, you've got everything you need to create a compelling piece of video content.
Like, I mean,
I started that way. I mean, I did. I started trying to do videos kind of on the cheap, and then I brought a full-time video person in-house, and then I eventually outsourced it. But I mean, I have to do like world-class video, because if not, it just portrays my brand as cheap, and it's a misalignment. Like you know those crappy explainer videos? They're crappy explainer videos. And guess what? Perception is reality, right? So if this is the craziest part about software companies, right? People perceive that your product will look like your website. It's a really, really direct correlation. The same with your service level if you're a service business. If your website looks poor, people will think your written reporting is poor, your data reporting is poor, your actual whole brand becomes a representation of your perception. And so it's so important to me, at least personally, to have premium branding, because that affects essentially people's perception of you.
Absolutely. But when I say both, what I'm saying is, Google has to have something to index and put together with that video to say, okay, this video is this, and it's all about this, and all the text around it and the titles and all that stuff's important. But you have to be, like Rand Fishkin used to say, 10x on the content, and the video has to be good. I mean, I don't. If you want good results, you can't shortcut that stuff.
Right. Yeah, and it's going to change. I think a lot of people have the how do you buy type content on their site, and they leave it up there for a year and a half and don't take into account that there's different competitors and the purchase journey has changed. But everybody should have the how do you buy article on their website. How do you buy SEO? How do you buy a CRM, right? But don't just write that article and leave it there, because people appreciate the newness of that content.
Yeah, and you really, I mean, you can't. It's really hard we say it easier than it is done, really, because you can't just go out and say, oh, you're a writer, great. You have to have a specific type of writer. If you're writing sales content or you're writing just blog content, you still have to have a good writer. You can't just say, oh, okay, they're $10 a word or $50 a word.
But it's not all doom and gloom, because if you own a business, you got into that business because you have some level of subject matter expertise, right?
Yeah.
You have something that that other people don't. And so for the business owner listening, think about that. Where did you step into the business? Why? What's your secret? And leverage that. Now, you may need a writer, and a good writer, to format it and to get it to be a quality piece of content, but don't let go of the fact that you got where you are because you know something special, and be willing to share that.
Yeah.
And all I was going to say on that, guys, and I think it's really important, is if that's not what you're passionate about, you don't need to do it.
Sure.
But don't think that you can do half-ass content and get full-ass results.
Right.
Because it just isn't going to happen. Well, and the only reason is there's zero barrier to entry to content marketing. There is no inherent rule that says I couldn't write a bad article about the history of Chad, the country in Africa. I don't know anything about Chad in Africa, but I could write an article about it, publish it on Google, and think I'd rank. And by the way, a lot of people do that by hiring freelance writers who don't know anything about Chad in Africa and have them write on it, and then they wonder why it doesn't work.
Yeah,
and we have to be careful.
If you're spending $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 on paid AdWords or Facebook or whatever it may be, you have no excuse.
Yep.
Go get the content written, because you're gonna save money in the long run.
Yeah, Garrett, I know you're a sports fan, but it's kind of like paying all the money to the quarterback but not having receivers.
Right.
or an offensive line, right? And because the reality is, right, people are going to go to your website, and not everyone is so hot and so warm and they're just ready. They're like, where's that form? I need that demo now. Like, I need that free quote now. Give it to me, right? Most people, what do? They go on there and like, okay, can I trust these guys? What are their opinions? Okay, what are their reviews? And instead we think, oh, yeah, once we show up, once we rank, that's it. And the reality is, right, you still only convert most people 2 to 3% of all traffic into conversions on their website. So other 97% of the people, you weren't able to convince that you were the best option for them, or they weren't ready.
Yep.
And so it's really focusing on that, right? With your content marketing, what kind of content does sales need so that they can break through the noise, right? And it's everything takes time. People think that, PPC is quick. There is nothing remotely quick about Google Ads. It's no quicker than SEO. That's a lie, right? Because all you're doing,
I don't know if I agree to that.
I totally agree with it. And because it's only based on where you're starting from, right? If you go work with a web.com or network solutions, they already have such a high domain authority, right? That as long as you get the technical stuff right, they're going to do incredibly well from organic due to their market position.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, if they've never spent on PPC, you are going to waste so much money trying to understand the terms that convert for you. And you're going to essentially have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get there. Now, the problem of why PPC takes long is because sometimes people don't have the money to figure it out. So what I mean by that is, if you start PPC with a very small budget, you inherently want to probably get to the point of statistical significance on every keyword before you turn it off. So let's assume you did really thorough research and you start. So you're bidding on SEO services, SEO company, and SEO agency. How do you know which one of those three terms has the highest average order value, where you're going to make the best gross profit margin so you have enough cash left over to continue funding it? You're going to have to get at least 100 clicks on each. Now, let's assume each click is $40. So essentially, and you have a $4,000 budget, it's going to take you months to figure out what works.
Yep.
And so, but people think it's instant. And then, by the way, they don't have no tracking to even know if the gross profit margin was high enough on that term for the type of person it was associated with the kind of psychological intent they had when searching it, that you keep wasting money essentially with a really great cost per acquisition on things that you're getting tons of conversions on, and you wonder why your net profit margin is dwindling every month. And you say, we need to stop doing Google ads. It's bad for our margin. We don't get the right clients. But you don't have enough CRM attribution to say, wait, what if only certain keywords are bad? And what if we change that to the right keywords so we could tie it back to our CRM? Okay, I think we could probably still advertise because we have enough of a gross profit margin on these types of terms. And that is why people go to Directive. That's what makes us successful, and that's what we're passionate, right? Is making advertising work for your business. It's not just about showing up and getting your conversions and getting a conversion rate and getting a cost per acquisition, because every business runs on cash to a certain extent. Even these venture capital funded startups, they still run on cash, and you need to essentially have a model that's profitable for people to grow.
Yeah, I had an old boss tell me one time, and I carry it with me every day: there isn't a business problem in the world that more sales can't solve.
It's true.
Yeah. All right, I think is it time for Believe It or Leave It?
Yes. Explain Believe It
Garrett,
or Leave It.
you've done this one time before, I think, and it's one of our most popular features of the show. It's Believe It or Leave It, and what we do is we give you 3 statements that we found on the internet, and we're going to ask you to tell the audience whether they should believe it or whether they should leave it. Are you ready for the first one?
All right. I'm ready.
Okay, the first one is click-through rate of organic listings is a ranking signal, and it should be paid close attention to.
Okay, so believe it, but I don't know if I'm going to say rank. It's hard. I don't like saying things are ranking signals. I think they're sure as heck valuable.
Yeah.
If you're not worried about if people find your result engaging compared to the other options available to them, you're missing one of the most important parts of marketing, which is copy. So please, please, please think about that. One of our clients who performs exceptionally well, they have schemas showing up in the stars for all their organic listings, and they do exceptionally well compared to other people who don't do well, even though they have higher page authorities, better keyword targeting sometimes, or even better content. I believe, as a fundamental kind of vague way of looking at it, that Google has a way of understanding that a result in the 8th position has an average click-through rate of X. If you are in the 8th position and have an average click-through rate that's higher of Y, Google will experiment and say, I wonder if users will like that at the 7th spot, and if this continues.
Yep.
And I think that is a very easy, simplistic way of explaining why click-through rate matters.
That's well said. And I would like to add to that, I think there's also that correlation to bounce rate as well. I mean, they definitely correlate together.
Yeah, although officially they never take that stance, but I agree.
No.
Yeah.
And John Mueller was saying that they don't go specific data on per website. It's a correlation of multiple websites. But I'm like, that's impossible.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. All right, number 2, Robert.
Number 2. You don't have to disavow bad links anymore because Google always devalues known spammy links.
Ooh. So this is more Murray Haynes, or Hayes. I think it's Murray Hayes. Haynes or Hayes. That's her world. Look, they say essentially that the old way of doing it was Google would penalize you for bad links. Now they're saying we inherently don't throw value to your site from bad links, so there's no point of disavowing them. I would say people who are far more familiar with disavowing links would argue that it's incredibly valuable. I think their businesses also rely on that. So, there is a little bit of incentive for them to communicate that, just as much as there's incentive for Google to communicate that you can't manipulate their algorithm. So I think both of them take with a grain of salt. But yeah, if you got a bunch of porn sites linking to your website, I don't see how it could hurt you by disavowing them. So I would, you could use things like Moz's spam score, but I think if you use a thing called common sense and ask yourself if you really need all these links from adult sites or from Russia or China, and if those really are valuable to your business in general, and you're wondering, and if traffic has been declining or if you're struggling to break through, I don't see the hurt in disavowing those. But take that with a grain of salt. I'm not an expert in link disavowal.
I'd like to add to that. I think the whole, in this, you can't prove me wrong, after talking to John and Gary, both from Google, that the whole purpose of that disavow tool was to give them samples of what we're calling bad links, and then using that data to create part of that algorithm so that Google knows, okay, this type of link is no good.
Yeah, I mean, you could essentially say, right, that the humans were using the sample data for machine learning and AI to essentially crawl. I mean, I don't have any really – I think that they are smart enough to use that with some weighting in their algorithm and in their model. But – my take on it is, if you want to disavow things that are inherently bad for you, do that. I don't know what's going to happen, though. So I would do a little more research and follow people far smarter than I.
Okay. Number 3, believe it or leave it, having awesome duplicate content is better than having poor original content.
So the question is like, what's worse? No, neither. I would not post content that's duplicate because it's not wise. I don't. Number one, I think that's called plagiarism, right? Isn't that inherently what plagiarism is? Is taking someone else's work and then calling it your own.
Yeah.
So like that's obviously why duplicate content doesn't work. Number one, and number two, you're better off creating no content than bad content. Seriously, save that money, save that time. Put it in somewhere else where you have at least an emotional investment where you're willing to do things that are only great. The only reason you do bad content is because you don't actually care. If you did care and you actually cared and you read it and it was valuable to you, you wouldn't like it because it was bad for your brand. The only reason you haven't noticed it's bad is because you don't care. And so once you decide if you care or not, then you have to decide if you want to do it or not. Because once you care, you can only do good work. And if you don't care, that's fine. Just don't expect it to work.
So you're saying don't go to Fiverr and buy content?
No, as a guy who sold things on Fiverr and who learned SEO by trying to buy links on Fiverr, I'll tell you right now, it does not work. We all start somewhere. I was no different than anyone else listening to this podcast trying to figure out how to rank their site. And so, I would avoid that and really decide what you're emotionally invested in and then do marketing that you're emotionally invested in because that's when you do the best work.
I'm going to put that in the leave it category.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's a leave it. Sorry, guys. Long answer. Leave it.
And those of you that are buying or paying someone to do your content, I would recommend a tool called Copyscape. Run that content through Copyscape to make sure that it's not copied from another website.
Happens way more than you think.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Way more.
Yep.
All right.
Well, it's time for the Search Talk Live tattoo. Garrett, wrap it up for us. And we're looking for your most succinct piece of advice you can give our listeners. And when I say succinct, it's got to be tattooable, because Robert gets all these tattoos. So give us your best Search Talk Live tattoo to wrap it up.
And no pressure, Garrett, because I think this is going to be one of the best tattoos.
Oh, you've already got the space lined out?
I know, Garrett's got some throughout the show.
You got an appointment this afternoon, don't you?
That's right.
Let's see. All right. Let's see. Pause all advertising until you have CRM integration.
Okay. It's impactful.
Yeah.
It's impactful.
I think it's going to be tough for a lot of people, because some of them are even going, what is CRM?
Yeah, which we need to explore on a future show. But no, I think he's got the overarching driving point of this show.
Okay,
if you can't connect the dots.
I can do it better.
Okay. Save some ink.
Brand over website.
Brand over website. Okay, there's a T-shirt in that. I can see it. Yeah, brand over website. All right.
Or a carrot. You know those carrots, like the greater than carrot, like brand greater than website.
Got it.
Okay.
Bringing a visual stylistic element into it. Very nicely done, Garrett.
All right. Well, guys, I want to thank Garrett for not only being on the show, but I want to thank you for being a sponsor. It's people like you that actually make this show even better, because we've moved this into a studio. We're trying to do this all professional and all. So
thanks. I mean, you guys told me, right? I had to pay you guys to get on the show. Is that how this whole thing works?
No.
Big no.
No.
I'm just kidding.
You've given some great insight. I really appreciate you being on the show, and again, being a sponsor. We really thank you. Guys, go out and visit his website, directiveconsulting.com. And check out all the services that he offers. And, I wanted to add to this. I think it was great that you're so transparent that you're like, we don't do content. We let the people that are good at writing content write the content, because it's a tricky.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard, man. We're not the best at it. Thanks so much again, guys, seriously, for having me on the show.
Yeah.
It was always, I always listen to it, and it was cool to get on here. I think even a couple years ago, and then eventually get to sponsor it later. So no, it's always a blessing to be involved with you guys. You guys have always, been really helpful. So excited to see you guys back and at it with new energy and really crushing it. So congrats also on your big time guests you guys got coming up.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you very much. Guys, thanks again for listening. Be sure and get the word out about the show. We are back. Tell all your friends, all your coworkers, download the show, listen to it, and visit Directive Consulting, because they're our sponsors, if you appreciate the show. And we hope that we're giving you great value and content. Again, you can go on Twitter and hit us at Search Talk Live if you have a question, or you can do hashtag Search Talk Live, but you can send us a direct message if they want to talk to you, Matt.
And they can hit us both. You can hit me at Matt at Search Talk Live, and they can hit you at Robert at Search Talk Live as well. So check out searchtalklive.com for the upcoming guests. They're going to be great.
Yeah, next week, again, we have Joost de Valk on the show, creator of the Yoast plugin, which should be a great show. And again, after that, we have Rand Fishkin. I think everybody knows who Rand Fishkin is.
Yeah.
He's got a new book out. He's got a new business that he started. A whole bunch of things we're going to talk about on that show. But again, thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Search Talk Live is sponsored by the Robert Palmer family of companies. If you have questions for Search Talk Live, or you're interested in being a guest or a sponsor of the show, email Robert at searchtalklive.com. That's searchtalklive.com.